Maschine Plus versus MPC Live. Let's cut to the chase with this because I know a lot of people have been doing a lot of videos and doing their speculations, talks about it. Of course, nobody has any videos of them actually using the hardware, so we're not going to be doing that today. But I'm going to give you my opinions and my thoughts on what Native Instruments has to do to compete with the MPC Live. So as you know, Native Instruments released the MPC Plus. First comparison I like to make is battery life. Of course, from what I've seen in the videos, and I could be wrong, but it doesn't look like the Maschine Plus has any battery system in it. So you're going to have to get power supply. And I thought that the key thing about being standalone is that you have batteries built into it and you can take it anywhere you go. As a user of Maschine and as a user of MPC Live, I do like the fact that I could take the MPC Live to a gig without really have to plug it in anything and just hook it up to the audio system and use it for the evening. Now, if you had an evening longer than 4 hours, okay, yeah, you might need to plug it in then. But that battery portability, to me, is one of the shiny factors that I like about the MPC Live series versus the Maschine Plus series. Now, another thing that I'd like to see the Maschine Plus have that it doesn't have, that I believe that the MPC Live has over that, is that you have an installable hard drive. Now, you can use an external USB hard drive, but that's more stuff you got to have around. So Native Instruments is once again doing things their way versus Akai, with you being able to install a solid state drive into this thing or a spinning hard drive if you still use those, which those still work too as well. And you have a secure digital slot as well. Now the Maschine Plus does take a secure digital slot inside of that as well, and those are pretty big as well. So I guess you could say it's pretty comparable, but I did like the fact that you could take this thing apart, open it up, slap in your hard drive, leave that thing in there and keep that in there. I like that a little bit better, but some may actually like having a secure digital slot slid in there differently, or using the external USB powered hard drives as well. It's kind of apples and oranges as well, but I kind of lean more towards MPC Live on the aspect just because I like to be able to install things in the hardware that I use. Now, one of the main things that really made me switch from using the Maschine was the workflow. I know producers who make great tracks and are doing their thing, but as soon as they got that groove, they take it off and stem it out and put it on another DAW, because in my opinion, just song arranging is a lot lengthier, a lot more taxing and not very fun. You can have a good muscle memory down for it, and I've used it myself in the past, but one thing I liked about the MPC Live was that I could get different patterns and string them together, change how many times they repeat, change how many times they show up in the whole song, convert that whole song into a long pattern, and punch in and punch out. It was almost like you're working with a groove tape machine. And I haven't really seen from personal experience up to this point Native Instruments take time to improve their software, which brings me back to the point as to why I'm skeptical about using the Maschine Plus. I always enjoyed the Maschine software and the hardware combination. I really enjoyed that. I jumped on the back when Maschine was 1.5, before they even included VSTs in the software. So I did use it for a while. But one thing that I did not like was just arranging those songs, arranging those beats. You got that good beat that's 4 or 5 bars, but now you got to get that thing to about 2 minutes to 3 minutes long, with changes, with different idiosyncrasies that you can put in the beat, and that's something I didn't like. Now this, I will lean in Native Instruments side as far as built-in instruments. I was looking on the website and saw that you get massive. You get FM8, you get Prism, you get Monarch just for the instruments. You get Contact and Reactor 6, factory selections there, retro machines. This is very interesting because now you got to have some hardware that push that. But if you think about Complete, and if you think about the world of Contact, you know that Contact holds some very hardware intensive libraries that take gigabytes and gigabytes of storage. So you're going to run into a situation of figuring out, okay, what can I install into there? Or will Native Instruments comes up with a way to kind of use your secure digital card as sort of an extra bit of memory, almost like a FX chip on a Super Nintendo, to store all that information. Now, the instruments that come built in on the Maschine standalone, let me get my language right. On the MPC Live standalone, I'm like, they're okay. I'm not very pleased with how they sound on here. I'll just be honest with you. I'm not very pleased as far as the built-in software synths and bass synths and the drum. There's not even a drum synthesizer on here yet, from what I've heard, but I think I've heard that there's going to be one on there. but I never, the synthesizers, the standalone synthesizers that are in this unit weren't really sounds that I go to. Now I have a relationship with Massive. I've used Massive. I know my way around Massive. I've released preset libraries with Massive. FM8, it probably sounds good, but I don't think people feel like programming that unless you're a programming nerd, which would be very interesting of designing and going underneath the hood of FM synthesis on those two little screens. It's possible. I mean, they did it with the DX7, and all you have is a little dot matrix display there, so I don't see why you couldn't do that on the Maschine Plus. Also, Monarch, which basically is a Model D clone. MPC Live doesn't have that on there currently right now, and the Monarch sounds really good. However, I do like the appeal of actually touching the actual analog synthesizer, which is why I got the Behringer Model D. However, this is something that I believe that Native Instruments has an advantage over Akai with, because Native Instruments has been making great sounding libraries and instruments for years. So for them to take a piece of that pie and put it in the box, I definitely can lean it towards their favor on that mark. And that's something that I haven't seen Akai really quite keep up with yet. Now, once again, in order for Maschine or Native Instruments to compete with the MPC Live, they really got to upgrade their sampler. Now, I've used the sampler on Maschine for years, and I've used the sampler on Akai for years, just to sample, not even sampling, but just the sampler itself. Now on the Akai, you can take 4 layers of samples and combine them into one. You can mix them down to one sample. You can make these samples alternate on one pad. You can make the LFOs work on it. There's a lot more LFO options. There's a lot more filter options. There's multiple pole filters for high pass, band pass, and low pass. And we have a lot more signal routing features in here than what I see in Maschine. Now in Maschine, you definitely got some effect where you can apply a filter. There's MPC 60 emulation, there's SP 1200 simulation, and maybe there's some more things that have been added on there that I've not used. But the flexibility, really getting down those filters and the time stretching, they finally added it, but it took them a while to get it, but they did add it. Still, I feel like if I were to go back from MPC Live to the way that the software is set up now, I feel like I will be losing some things. I feel like I'll be losing some features that I like from the sampler that I enjoy on the Akai. Now, when it comes to plugins and effects, I'm mixed on this because I do like the Air suite of plugins that come built in to the Akai MPC Live right now. However, Native Instruments once again leverages their background in developing plugins and sound effects, and they are adding those into the box. There are a lot of plugins and effects that I'm seeing on the website that are going to sound amazing, and I'm glad they took time to improve that. And especially the drum synth, I think the drum synth is fun, and I really like to work with that. The MPC Live does not have currently a drum synth built in there, but I definitely think they may have something up their sleeve. But once again, that leans back over to the Maschine side, the Native Instruments side, as far as plugins and sounds. The MPC does come with a lot of great sound effects, especially with the Air suite plugins. I like to use that a lot. They sound really good, but I think there may be a little bit more options to work with that sound good on the Maschine Plus. Now, one more thing that makes me a little bit skeptical about this is the track record of Native Instruments upgrading their software. Now, it's almost like you're going to wait a long time for that next update that gives you the features that you've been waiting on. And from what I've experienced, from my personal experience, I've noticed Akai provide updates and firmware updates a lot more frequently than I see Native Instruments take time to update the software for the machine that they already have. So I'm a little weary about, yeah, I might have paid the money for this, and I think it's like $1,300 for this unit. I might have paid that money for this, but how much love is Native Instruments going to show this platform? And why are they going to change their energy by creating more updates for the Maschine platform now that the standalone is out? I don't know. I have to wait and back. See, so for me, it's more of a sit back and watch and let other people buy it and let other people kind of deal with the idiosyncrasies and see how often it updates. And at the same time, I feel confident that I'm probably not going to have to wait too long for the next firmware update for the MPC because they've been cranking them out. It's very easy to do. I don't know how easy it is for the Maschine Plus to update its firmware. Do you put in a USB stick? Do you have to download some software? Still wondering about that. But if Native Instruments can find a way to get more of the complete instruments in the hardware, the way that the complete instruments sound, that's going to lean things sonically in the advantage of the Maschine Plus. But then again, I'm thinking about the software and how much I don't like to arrange my beats on the Maschine. I love the screens. I loved working with them. I had a lot of fun. I like chopping the samples. I had the muscle memory down. But when it came to certain things, I felt like I was at a loss, and I actually gained on the MPC itself. And I don't know how in depth the MIDI implementation will be on a standalone on the Maschine Plus. Now I know that there's MIDI implementation on the MPC Live. Like I can see MIDI notes, I can see MIDI CCs, I can program the most significant bit, the least significant bit. This is real MIDI nerd talk right here. To pull up the program that I want from a piece of hardware, I can see note data, and I can go down to note data and see every list of event and edit each one by one if I want to get that in depth. I haven't seen that feature and functionality in Maschine, and I haven't seen the feature and functionality to draw perfect lines in your automation like you would in the DAW. So it makes me wonder, will Native Instruments update their software and give you the flexibility and power to do that? I don't know. Me personally, I don't think so. I think they got a good group system, and I think they're happy with the way it is. But it still leaves me wanting a little bit more. Now, sonically, from hardware alone, and of course, I haven't heard the Maschine Plus, but I think when I hook up the MPC Live to my speaker system, I have to turn it down, because when you really get the drums cracking on this thing and you hear how bright and how clean this thing sounds, it almost hurts your ears. So I have to watch out how loud I listen to this thing, because it really cranks out a lot of high volume, because there's a lot of beef, and I don't know what sauce they're doing in there, but it sounds amazing, and I can hear just the high end sample bits coming from it's weird, especially when I don't go from the computer audio interface and I use the actual audio from the hardware. It's weird. It's something that you have to hear more than it can be explained. I don't know if we're going to get that same gain in power from this unit. Now, they are talking about doing a hard a metallic frame on this, which is my final thing about robustability. I like how robust the MPC Live is. I feel comfortable taking this thing around without tearing it up. I didn't feel that quite comfortable about doing that with the MK1 back when I had that, or the MK2, or the Maschine Studio. Didn't really like moving it around. I've had issues with knobs in the past on Maschine, on Native Instruments hardware. Maybe that might be different this time. I'm not sure. But there's a lot of things that Native Instruments will have to do to compete. Now, they got some things beat on Akai already, but I don't know if it's something that can make me switch back to go get it, because it is a pretty hefty price point right now at 13, and I don't know if I would want to drop the money on that. I would rather just get an MK3 and be happy. But I do have a Maschine Studio still, so when I want to try it out again, when new updates finally come out that I'm interested in, I will definitely check it out. But in the meantime, I'm going to be using my MPC Live. But I do know that there are a lot of Maschine users out there that are really good at what they do and put out a lot of great music. And I tip my hat to them. I like collaborating with them sometimes, and it's good that I know how to work my way in the software in case I got a collab. So with that being said, let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let me know. Help me grow this channel. This is Dillio representing DillioT2K.com. I'll see y'all later. Peace. DillieGang.